Welcome back to the channel. We're going to do Resolve Essentials 4. I'm going to go over a trailer that I recently cut and just walk through some of the workflow and some of the things that'll pop up as you're getting your trailer or your cut together. So here we have a few different things going on. Let's just check it out. I got some graphics.
I'm your iFit trainer, Adam Layakino, and this is your Train for Sports series.
I'm your iFit trainer, George Hincapie. Welcome to the Train Like.
Let me show you as far as the rundown of the trailer workflow. Here in the media bin, as you can see, we got quite a few folders. I'm a big fan of keeping things organized so you know where to look if you need something. So here we have our master bin. I have a graphics, I have logos, music, a reference, series, and then a couple of timelines, a timelines folder, and a title elements. So as I was adding elements, the basic trailer was to showcase each series that we are going to be releasing. So I made a series folder, and then inside that we have the different versions that we were looking at. I brought all my media in. Here's this one, for instance, has quite a few folders. I actually got rid of a lot of the media because I didn't use it. This is the consolidated project. If we look, we have clips in each one, and then if you notice this little drop down arrow, these are like reference markers to another piece of media. That's because I chopped chunks out in and out as I was reviewing the media. I'll show you what I mean. So a few of these clips have that where I'm looking at media. Maybe I found a spot that I liked. I would add a marker. If I was to go M and place a marker. Now if we look down at this clip that we're looking at, here's our marker right here. And we could drop down and here's the marker. So you can cut down your clips to the usable pieces by adding the markers. So I'll go ahead and take that one out because I don't need it anymore. And as you can see, the clip returns to normal. So I did that through a lot of the footage. Let's go back to the timeline. So in this media view, you could see I got my music here. I got some logos. I have a timelines folder because I had a couple different variations of this. Title elements happens to be empty this time, but under graphics, we have this kind of stuff. We have a rowing, like the little call outs here. I have an original, which has some of the other graphics right here. So I received these graphics and then needed to overlay them over these clips. And then I had some other graphics like you could see here, this logo right here that comes on and off. If we reveal that in the media, that's under our logo. So I have this kind of logo here and this logo. So these are things where I just added them on layers and stacked them in place. And then I laid down my music bed. I showed you in another tutorial how I chopped the music up right here so the last hit would coincide with this logo here. So I'll show you what that's doing. Right there. I just wanted the last logo reveal here to kind of time with that peak in the music right here. And then I trailed it off a little bit. So let's get into the edit a little bit more and I'll kind of walk through what I do. So this being an ongoing series, we already had this music chosen. So I essentially just threw this down on the audio track 2 and locked it in place. Now for me, I like to cut to the music. If I got beats and things like that, that signify a change or maybe an emotional buildup, I'll use that to dictate where I want to cut or timing changes. And I really can't add music afterwards or try to cram a cut. If I get new music, I'll end up redoing the whole thing. So that's just something that I do. So as a few of these things occur, I'm making the changes happen inside the music. So as you can see, we got a little spike in the music here, and I have a change in the visual. So let's check that out real quick. It's a little bit choppy of a playback as this is a remote computer I'm using, but we have lines of dialogue on the VO track, mono track 1 here, and then just the music bed. And then as the hits change, not all of them,
I'm your iFit trainer, George Hincapie.
But as they usually change, I'll time it where the series ends up hitting with the next music note. So here's one here we go from this Pilates over to this strength one, and it goes like this.
Pilates sequences.
Welcome to the porch.
So as soon as they come on screen, we get that boom sound.
Welcome to the porch.
So essentially, I have these waveform beats that I could see. I've got some volume automation here too to help some of the dialogue come through. Well, my layers are as follows. Let's go ahead and make this a little bigger so you guys can see. We got 7 video tracks here. Layer 7 is just the little logo in the corner, the little bug. And then behind that, I have a little background ellipse. And then the next layer is this little sport or name of the series tag. Although you can't see this background ellipse too much, it's kind of underneath this iFit logo. That kind of pops on and off, so I left it just to be a little bit of an undershadowing here. So these two are kind of like together, if you will. And then whenever these pop on, you get this lower third, this kind of gradient right here, if you could see that in the bottom. It's hard to turn on and off in here, but I have that. So this actually goes throughout because there isn't a spot where that text isn't present. It's just the name of each series switches. So this is also just a continuous file until the last hit. And then we switch to this out logo, and that's where that goes. Now I have a few layers. V1 is pretty much the main video. And then I have a couple spots where a few of them time a little differently. So if we move over here, this one could actually be brought down. Sometimes I'll do an optical, but in this style of a trailer, it looks like I didn't.
As I lead you through a
So these cut
variety of Pilates
pretty much all cuts. So I could technically, drop all these down a layer, which by the way, you highlight that and hit Option down arrow. And then I've got some timing changes on these. So if we look, this one's slowed down to 76%. This one's slowed down to 75. So sometimes I have to elongate a shot or something like that, or it just doesn't feel right. So I would change the speed. And then we're going to the next series here. And some of these have color correction. Some of them have different things going on. This one I know does. Yeah, it was a log file. And then I have some audio fades going on in between the cuts. Sometimes like this one here, I have a fade with this little handle right here. And then other ones I have a transition, which is right here, a little actual audio crossfade. So it depends on if there's a gap right here. And then with this dialogue track where it's essentially just clean voiceover. So if we solo that and listen to it.
Now's your time to get after it.
Alex Gregory here, iFit trainer. Welcome to the Portugal.
So like this one was a little noisy. If I shut off the voice isolation, we can listen to that.
Alex Gregory here, iFit trainer. Welcome to the Portugal.
So I had voice isolation on. There's a few others that are worse actually.
7 days, all 7.
Probably that one. Let's listen to it with that off.
7 days, all 7 continents.
So you can hear all that noise in the background. There's a generator running.
Marathon 7 days, all 7.
So a little voice isolation on there. Pretty much took care of that.
Marathon 7 days, all 7 continents.
So I did that as needed. Here's another one where it cuts a little bit early.
For challenging yourself, for showing up.
So I stacked that one on top. That way I could have this audio underneath kind of fan out a little bit. And I ended up changing the cut on this, adding some different shots here. So here's one where I actually have a fade on this top clip. As you can see, it's got a little handle right there of, I don't even know, 8 frames, 6 frames. So it's going to fade down into this next close-up shot.
And to find out what I'm made of and who I can be if I try.
And the rest are pretty much cuts. I do have a fade in here as we leave this group shot, just to signify we're kind of backing out of the area. And that's essentially putting this trailer together. So we have the music bed, and I altered this second piece of tail just to get the hit to match with this last logo right here. I put a little fade on that. That's actually not where the track ends. And then we have little voiceover sound bites from the various workouts. Some of them go with the scenes. Some of them are just pulled from other ones. So it's not always what they're actually saying in the middle of the clip. And then my markers up here are basically to signify each of the sections. So here's my train for sport. There's Croatia. There's Pilates. This is just to keep me organized so I know where everything is. And then if I use the little index here and slide this open, I can go to markers and see each of them right here. Just click on them if I need to. That's something I use all the time. Let me see what I got going on the effects. Looks like I have a little bit of compressor going on the main voiceover. So let's see how that's working.
I'm your iFit trainer, Adam Lay.
See a pretty good amount of gain reduction here.
This is your train for
Let's just keep things balanced in between the different levels. I know I did come through and change some volume. Like you can see on this clip, it's raised up, 9.9. This one's 4.9. And then I have a little bit of automation right here. I think I just needed this last line to be a little bit louder.
Croatia. Throughout.
Yeah, I didn't like how he said that, so I kind of gave it a little more emphasis. There are some fades on track 2. Looks like I have a limiter, -7.
Sport Series.
I'm your iFit trainer, George.
And then I do have some automation going on these tracks. As you can see, our channel strip faders are green. So if we switch over to, say, fader level, you can see I got some changes here. And same thing with this. Although there's not going to be as much on this, looks like I dipped down right at the end. And there's a couple spots here, which look like there might have been something previously there. And then this got brought up a little bit. So it's a little bit of automation along with the compression to make that happen. Switch this back to none. This is something I do after the fact if I feel like the mix still isn't sitting that well with the compression and all that going on. And then on the bus here, I have another limiter at -9. So that's the dialogue and the music all going together to this bus. And that's just to keep it under control a little bit more. And there's no automation on that.
I'm your trainer, Adam Layakino, and this is your train for sports
And then I kind of use my levels here up at the top just to see where we're at.
series.
I'm your iFit trainer, George Hincapie. Welcome to the Train Like a Pro Endurance Series here in beautiful.
And this one probably isn't as loud, but when I had my monitors up, it was pretty decent. So that's pretty much this session overview. You can see how I organized all the media by category, kept my graphics in another spot. And literally when I started this project, kept these two logos up top here, the little iFit one and the background. And the background is just a fusion clip with a little bit of shading in there. Yeah, see I got this little ellipse right here. So that's actually behind that logo, this logo. And then this logo is just shrunk down. I know it's kind of hard to see, but whenever these are off, this is actually behind it. So a little bit harder to see, but it essentially gets taken care of by this lower banner here, which was provided with the text and the little shading. So depending on the shot, it's a lot easier to see. I have a couple of extra timelines. So if we go to our smart bins, this is one thing I was showing you guys. If I go to timelines, I have the main timeline, which this is like V3 of this sizzle reel. But as you can see, I got one called Port. I got one called Race Around. I have a pancake and a pancake copy. So what that is over here, I would start filtering through some footage and getting it together, finding some clips that I liked, reviewing. If I liked something, I would make an edit and copy it. And then that's the same thing with some of the other ones, like this one here has a different little bit of footage on it. And then this Port one was some Portugal footage. And I have Race Around, which has been removed, but there was a lot of footage on this, so I was just reviewing it on a separate timeline. This ended up being the spot that I ended up choosing. So I made an edit, copied that, went back to my main edit, and added that in right here, and then colored it. All right, so that's kind of a broad overview of a trailer that I cut, just sourced with a whole bunch of different media and series that we had. The same music, it was decided we wanted to keep that for the secondary one. We had one last month where I did that as well. So we kept that, we kept the bugs, we changed the naming of all the series to match. And then I just went through selecting shots, retiming stuff, and letting the music build up. And that's pretty much the trailer process. I always get a couple of changes and suggestions, so that's why we have V3. I pretty much make it a point, if someone wants a revision, as soon as I open the project back up, I save a new timeline and call it V whatever the next version is. So let's say we were going to do another one here. I would right click the timeline and say duplicate, but then you could rename the timeline, and I would just rename this to V4. And then as you can see in our timelines, we now have a V4 up here. So then you could always go back to the prior version if you needed to. And that saved me quite a few times. All right, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. And I'll talk to you guys on the next video.